and to our guests, former members of the Black Panther Party, for being here today. Food is on its way, so I'm going to do introductions of the panelists, and then we're going to take a quick break to eat, and then we'll get into the conversation. So our first panelist is Hank Jones. I'm going to wave to everybody. Henry Hank Jones was... Hank Jones was born in New Albany, Mississippi, and moved to San Francisco, California as a child, where his family was faced with rampant discrimination. After graduating high school, he joined the Marine Corps, and it was in the racially segregated US-occupied Japan that he learned about the murder of 14-year-old Emmett Till in 1955. Emmett Till's death was the impetus for Hank's community and political engagement, and he joined the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and then the Black Panther Party of Northern California and the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense as an organizer and an educator. He became a political prisoner for his involvement in the party, and from 2003 to 2009, Hank was one of 8 mostly former Panthers targeted by the Patriot Act and Homeland Security for the killing of a San Francisco police officer called the San Francisco 8. Despite targeted attacks by COINTELPRO and Homeland Security, Hank has stuck by the Panthers' principles and remain an advocate for Black liberation and the liberation of people worldwide. Thank you so much again, Mr. Jones, for being here with us today. Our next panelist is Norma Mtume. Norma Mtume was born in San Diego, California, and grew up in South Central Los Angeles. At Cal State LA, she became involved with the Black Student Union and the Black Panther Party. Among her responsibilities, she became the Minister of Health of the party, overseeing the free medical clinics in Northern and Southern California. And later, she also became the party's Minister of Finance. Norma's work in the party was rooted in her passion for health and personal experience of healthcare disparities in the Black community. She also became a target of COINTELPRO and was falsely incarcerated for her involvement with the party. She earned a master's in health sciences and marriage and family therapy, specializing in serving African American families, and co-founded a nonprofit called Shields for Families, which serves African American and Latino families in South LA. During and after the party, Norma Mtume has remained devoted to community care, justice, and healing in a wide array of efforts from Los Angeles to Rwanda. Thank you so much for being here this afternoon. And our last panelist will be Ruth Wakabayashi. Ruth Wakabayashi was born in Boyle Heights to Japanese parents only a couple years freed from internment camps. She grew up in a largely Latino, Japanese, and African American community and attended Cal State LA for education. While organizing with a diverse coalition for minority students, she was invited to help with the Black Panther Party's free breakfast program in Compton, where she started learning about the African American struggle and saw it as her struggle too. She was instrumental in the party as an organizer when the Los Angeles chapter went underground and moved to Oakland in 1975 to teach at the Oakland Community School. After the party, she continues to be an activist for human rights, particularly with the organization League Gay Progressives, which supports immigrants, Palestinians, Black reparations, political engagement, and Black, Indigenous, people of colors, arts, and culture. Thank you so much for being here, Ms. Wakabayashi. So at the moment, we're waiting on Keith to get here for food. So I think we're just going to take a couple more moments if that's what we're doing. Ned, do you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much, JB. I apologize for the wait, everybody. At this point, it's taking a little longer than expected. Del, do you think we should move forward with our panelists? Yeah. Let's welcome our panelists, everybody.
All right, thank you guys again so much for being here. Sorry about the delay. Let's just get started, and then I think we'll take a quick break for food once it gets here. So to start off, could we go around and everyone share an experience that inspired you to join the Black Panther Party? Sorry, what experience inspired you to join the Black Panther Party?
The murder of Emmett Till. In 1955, I was stationed in Japan, and we got the news about Emmett Till's lynching and torture and murder in the Jet magazine. And I saw that photograph of his remains, and I just lost it, and kind of it turned my whole life around. I became an activist from that point on, and I was anti-establishment, to say the least. But we started fighting back, and they had before Emmett's murder, they had the towns around the base segregated. It was like being back in Mississippi or something. And we were putting up with that and accepting it, I guess. But after Emmett's murder and torture and all that, and I saw the pain on the photograph of his mother, the pain on her face, and that changed my whole life. We started desegregating everything around us. We didn't want to hang out with the rednecks, but the Japanese, this was not the Japanese people. This was my fellow military members that had the town segregated and had influenced the Japanese people. So our war was not with them, with the Japanese people, it was with our fellow servicemen, members. And so took us about a year, but they got the message and we could go wherever we wanted. And we went back to our own little enclaves, our little juke joints and stuff. We didn't want to hang out with them, and but we did not want to be denied based on the color of our skin, our race. So then I got out and came home and was looking for some way to get involved. I never seen a good fight I didn't want to be in. And SNCC came and knocked on my door one day, and I ended up joining and working with SNCC for 5 years, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And from that, Black Power movement came along. SNCC started demanding Black Power, and we established an organization, Independent Action Movement, which was a Black Power group. And from that, I went to the Black Panther Party, Northern California, and the Black Panther Party for self-defense. I believed in self-defense. I believe it's every individual or every entity's right that lives on this planet to defend itself, preserve its life, its family, and Black Panther Party gave me that opportunity. Black Panther Party for self-defense gave me that opportunity.
Hi, I'm Ruth Wakabayashi. I was born in Boyle Heights a few years after my parents were released from the concentration camps all over California and all over the country. I lived in Boyle Heights is a marginal community. We lacked good education opportunities. We lacked markets. We lacked medical care. And, you kind of grow up in that situation. And as I went on to college, your point of view starts evolving. And as I worked in college with BSU, EOP, MECHA, we formed a solidarity slate, and we ran for office. We won, and we were the first minority student government in Cal State LA. Shortly after that, that taught me the importance of coalition building. When you're young, when you're in college, you don't realize it, but coalition building is going to give you the support that you need, fighting the good fight together. And from there, I think my point of view evolved from Asian American to minority, and then I was invited to go to the breakfast program, and I was studying to be a teacher, so it was right in my interest. And as I worked in the breakfast program both in Compton and Pasadena, I started learning more about the ideologies of the party. And party at that time was no longer cultural nationalist. It became more of a revolutionary internationalist. And so the party too evolved to a point where they opened up to different groups, like Fred Hampton starting the coalition with Appalachian poor white, and there was a time when the Red Guard in San Francisco was told to organize their own group. But when I came in, the ideology had evolved, and I just kind of evolved into being a member of the party. You don't fill out an application or anything. It just kind of evolves. But my position, when I looked at things that were happening in our society, I knew that the Japanese, we had our issues. I felt, though, that African Americans, I would see mothers that would lose their kids to, gang warfare, and I felt like, I have to address that as well. And so, that inspired me. And not only that, to see men and women who are really willing to face death because they want their communities to have, services that the rest of America or the rest of the entitled people have. I think it's hard for people that have grown up in entitlement to relate, but on a human level, and that's where it all comes down to, on a human level, when you address yourself to the needs of everybody, then it's only natural for you to get involved in a struggle. But my inspiration was to see that there were people willing to die, and that's not an easy thing to face. But you have to pick what kind of life you want. I tell my husband, some people sell their souls because they want to make money, and other people, are basically for the people, and that's the distinction that each of us have to face. But my inspiration was to see people willing to do that. Yeah.
Well, I grew up in LA too, between LA and San Diego. My dad and mom split up when I was about 4, so I spent all the school time here in LA, and summers, holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, all those times I would spend in San Diego, in Southeast San Diego, if anybody knows San Diego. So I grew up between the two places, and very, very poor communities. I went to Carver Middle School and Jefferson High School, if you know anything about that community over there on 41st and Central, where one of the big raids occurred. But I was going to go to college and pull myself up by my bootstraps, not knowing that I didn't even have no boots to put no straps in. And I was going to major in physical education and minor in math, because that's what I wanted to teach, those, and foreign language. Those are my best subject in school. So I managed to get to Cal State LA pretty much on my own, because the counselor told me that even though I had the highest academic grade point average in my class, that I should go to community college. And I never forget him. But anyhow, I ended up at Cal State LA. And while there, all this is going on. The Black Power movement is really springing up, the Chicano movement, the women's movement, the nonprofit movements, the anti-war movement, and the Watts insurrection in 1965 started to open my eyes just a little bit, but not enough for me to say, I'm just going to quit school and I wasn't ready to die, Ruth. I wasn't there yet. So first semester attending Cal State LA, there's this place we call the Hellhole, where you could go and get hot dogs and fries and not the real cafeteria, but just a place. And mostly the Black Latino students, they used to go in there and hang out and play bid whist and stuff. And I passed there every day, going to my classes, and this guy is standing out there. I see him all the time. He's always standing out there. So finally one day he gets up the courage to hop from behind the bushes and say, "Hey, my name is Al, what's your name?" And we're gonna walk you to class. And that was the beginning of me starting to learn about what the Black Power movement really was about. He had a little a royal blue VW bug that had a Muhammad Speaks sticker on it and something else about Black Power this. And so we started going together, and he kept trying to get me to come over to the Panther offices. So, no, I got to go to school. I was working as a long distance operator. One of those like, what's her name, Lily Tomlin? Operator, may I help you? Had to go to work and make a little money so I can, get out the ghetto and go in and, become prosperous and stuff. And needless to say, when the raid occurred in '69, when they raided so many offices all over the country, but here in Los Angeles, he was in one of the offices on Exposition, and they beat him up pretty bad. Broke his bones around his eye socket and stuff, and put him in jail. So that started to get my attention. So I started going around the headquarters office that was all bombed out by then, but we were still going in there, trying to pull our breakfast program back together, having it around the corner. And while doing that, I would go and see what was going on, because I wanted to find out what was happening with the political prisoners, the 21 that they arrested. And so the officer of the day he asked me, could I type? So yeah, of course, been typing since we were 11. You guys been typing since you were 2. I mean, some of you, But so he said, well, I need this typed. So I would type up his little notes and whatnot. And then they started to open up the clinic. And since I was at Cal State LA majoring in PE, I had studied biology, anatomy and physiology, kinesiology. I had more information about health and medicine than anybody else at the age of 19, so I became the coordinator of the clinic. That's how it happened. It's no applications, that kind of stuff. The folks who were in charge, they would try to seek out, what skills different people had and assign them to those types of jobs. So that's how I got involved with the party. Just unexpected. Just watch out with people that you meet and whatnot. You never know where it's going to take you.
Thank you so much. It's incredible how the party was able to give you all a way to channel the rage and despair and lack in your communities into action. So I would just like to know a little bit more about how the party leveraged your unique skills, with organizing, Mr. Jones with the Marine Corps, Mrs. Wakabayashi with education, and of course Ms. Mtume with health, and how your experiences contributing to the party's survival program shaped your worldview and political philosophies.
I was apolitical before I joined the Black Panther Party. And politics was the last thing on my mind. I was just looking out for me. And when I joined the Black Panther Party, it taught me that, oppressed people were oppressed globally, not just locally or in my own community. That was a global oppression, and that we should be concerned about everybody that's oppressed, not just us. So, and the concern we had for our own people, we should extend that out to every oppressed peoples. And that's one of the things that it opened my eyes and attracted me to the programs, to the Black Panther Party program, the 10-point platform and program that the party had resonated with me. And I could see, and the fact that they didn't just talk about it, they implemented it. They put it into action. That's what impressed me most. It was like I had spent couple of years in meetings and stuff and talking about and theorizing about stuff, and the party just cut across that stuff and started doing things. And that was what attracted me to the party. And I tried to, of course, I was limited. I was 33 years old when I joined the Black Panther Party for self-defense. I had a wife and 3 kids and a nephew and a sister I was trying to take care of. I was the only male adult left in my family. So I had to have a job. I was working at the post office, and I had to try to figure out, I was conflicted about wanting to run off to Mississippi, where I thought the fight was. But then I realized when Snake knocked on my door and told me that the fight was in my own neighborhood, my own community. And there was work to be done in the community. And Snake was working on a northern strategy, to go along with their southern strategy. The organizing in the South was not going to work in the inner city. So we had to come up with our own means and methods. And we organized in San Francisco, we organized the WACO, the Western Addition Community Organization, which was an organization made of different interest groups, personal interest groups, welfare rights, police brutality, discrimination in hiring, and living, conditions and stuff like that. So all these issues we put into one organization, and each one had a representative. And one of the first members was Yuri. Yuri, I can't remember his name now, but he was coming out of the Japanese concentration camps, and fresh out of the concentration camps, and he was one of our founding members. And the other one was Danny Glover's father, who was an activist. And another one was a lady named Mary Rogers. Mary Rogers had 10 kids, dirt poor, coming from Texas, into San Francisco. Had more holes in her dress than she had cloths. And she became a housing expert. And the only reason that there's still black people left in San Francisco, because she demanded low-income housing. Fought it all the way to Washington, D.C. And when the student strike at San Francisco State, when we were trying to establish black studies at San Francisco State, jumped off, Waco was one of the main supporters of that strike. They came and joined the picket lines and stuff. Because the tax squad was just beating them down out there, bloody. So that taught me that, actually, it didn't teach me that. I learned in the Marine Corps that a small body of a unit or small group of people who were unified and together, could combat a larger unit if you stuck together, if you were united. Yeah. That was my first lesson in that. We were overwhelmed. In Japan, we were overwhelmed because we were a small unit of about 150 Marines next to this giant Army military base. And they were controlling everything. So I learned that from that experience. And SNCC and the Black Panther Party extended that knowledge for me to make it something global, and to care about everybody that's oppressed, not just a certain number of people or group of people. So true. We were not, Black Panther Party was not a racist organization. The original Rainbow Coalition was created by Fred Hampton of the Black Panther Party in Chicago, Illinois. Fred was about 20 years old, but he had people from Appalachia as part of that organization, rednecks from Appalachia. And you know, that, just being part of the Black Panther Party taught me the lessons of working together as a people.
Yeah.
And working with other groups and forming coalitions and doing all this. Whereas I thought you had to started out thinking I could just beat all of them, physically. And I started breaking my hands, and I realized that wasn't going to work. So I had to find another way. And it came to my door. They were going to bus my kids out to the white suburbs, and they hadn't even given me the respect to let me know they were doing this. Busing was government mandated. How do you fight that? It's already mandated by the federal government. You fight it by demanding two-way busing. We demanded that they bus white kids into our communities if they bust us into theirs. And it worked, We got a lot of concessions out of that. And we got some improvements in the conditions of our schools in our community. Of course, they weren't like the ones in the white neighborhoods, but it was better. And that's one of the things that Waco worked on. So.
I think the question was what skills that we have that.
Yeah, what was your experiences contributing to the party's survival programs, and how did your involvement in the party shape your worldview and political philosophy?
Okay. First of all, I think that as I worked as a community worker in the party and started to learn a little bit more about, the ideology, I grew from there. In Los Angeles, during around 69, the offices were being targeted, and the party in Los Angeles went up to Oakland, 72? Okay, in 72. But part of the party that I was involved in went underground. So I was underground until around 75. And then I went up to Oakland and started teaching in the Oakland Community School, which was very different than being in LA. The structure of the party was very, very different. We had to have weekly political education. We had to study. We had to read Mao. We had to read Fanon. We had to read the articles in the papers about struggles in Africa. And during the same time, Huey was talking about, the party went from an ideology of cultural nationalism, black pride, to revolutionary internationalists, which encompassed struggles of oppressed people in the world. And then he talked about we are no longer just nations, we're communities. So the evolution went to revolutionary intercommunalism. And I think that's encompassing struggles everywhere. And so that's how my ideology kind of grew. But a lot of it was because, we had to study, and we had to, so we grow when we learn about other struggles. So I think that's how, contributed to me.
while we're on you, Ms. Wakabayashi, could you talk a little bit more about your experiences in the community school, because that was sort of a round-the-clock program where you were not only teaching the children and
when I went up there, the school was just beginning, and we really didn't have a strong curriculum, but we were dealing mostly with the children of party members and also community children. The school provided, like, our breakfast program, free breakfast for the children in the neighborhood and our own children. It provided busing, and it also provided, all the survival programs. The survival programs were temporary programs pending, major change or revolution. Okay, but they were temporary programs, but they were programs that the neighborhood could relate to, and that's why they supported the party. Okay, what was it? My train of thought. In the party we taught, and I was already a teacher. I was teaching. I had taught in LA Unified, and so I taught kind of the basic subjects, and we teach our own ideology, not structured, but in the way that we approach each other, is that way. But we also had work. I mean, the party was very organized. I learned a lot about organization through the party. We also were on 24-hour call. If on the weekend they needed help at the newspaper or at one of the social programs, and we were there. We sold newspapers. We collected donations for sickle cell. After school, we would go to, the party had 2 dorms, one for the little children, one for the older children. The teachers usually went to the older dorm, and we would bathe the children, braid their hair, put them to sleep, and then we'd clean the dorms. So we were like working, around the clock. But
I could add on a little bit
yes,
for that. Thank you, Ruth. I guess you can hear me. My 3 children started life at the schools. I was here in Los Angeles. My oldest son was 2, and we had the call for folks who had kids who were potty trained. Send your kids up to the school. So they went. My son went up to Oakland Community School, and initially, we were just starting to put things together. But I actually worked on the science and the math curriculums at all. And when my 3 children, when we left Oakland, I brought them to Los Angeles first and told them what grades I wanted them to put them in. They would not do that. They said, because they're only this age, I said, they're going to be bored in there. So we went to San Diego, and they put them in the classes that I asked them to put them in, because our kids were so advanced. I mean, we said the world is the child's classroom. And you couldn't, no question that you couldn't ask. But the teachers did go to the dormitories at night, and they took care of the kids. They would pick the kids up on Monday morning with their little clothing bag. They go and they take them to school. So they're at school all week. They get breakfast there. They get their lunch. They have after-school activities. And afterwards, the vans would take them to their living quarters, because we were working 20-hour days, 23-hour days and stuff. And so the kids were like little prince and princesses. I mean, they were mad at me for leaving the party. I mean, I talked to a lot of parents whose kids were like that, because they just had everything they needed. But then on Friday, the van would bring them with their little bag back home. And, you get your clothes all cleaned up. But then they had Saturday activities, too. And Sundays, mostly we were able to spend more time with them if you weren't working on the paper, because you have to get that done so it can come out next week. And it was, but the school, it was a phenomenal opportunity for young people to get started in. Now I have a PhD, I have a master's level, and one that that was just so super smart. He decided he didn't want to go to college with a full paid scholarship to UC Berkeley School of Engineering. And he came back home, and anyway, he's some big wig at DWP now, making big money. So this school was a wonderful. And I could just chip in my little bit about my worldview grew to include an international cultural component. Because first it was just about, Black culture, like you were saying, and it started to grow. And it wasn't until after I got out of the party that my Afrocentric worldview began to develop more. Because, there were the various factions during that time. There were the cultural nationalists, like the US organization, that we weren't trying to put on no dashikis and dress. You would never see us dressed like this in those days. You just wouldn't. But that's one thing that I missed, that I feel like I missed, so I was slow catching up on that piece. But one thing I do is I encourage people to vote. You might think it's rigged or whatever, but a whole lot of people died so that we can have the opportunity to do that. And we just have to figure out, how do we watch the system, monitor the system. But our job is to do the voting, because people died for us to be able to do that. And especially as an older person, that I can do that. I can be a back office person. I can do your accounting. I could do your healthcare stuff. But I'm not getting out there marching. Granny ain't gonna do that. That's. But my world, it just expanded from being in the party. And I never thought I was real political or organized or anything. But looking back, I guess I was, just in a different vein.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Really quick, could you also add on a bit about how the health clinics ran? Because this was, a product of so much inter-community coalition work and building, where you got, your medicine and your resources from people outside the party. So could you talk a bit about that? And then also the training you received. One of my favorite stories from your oral history was how you were so trained in diagnostics that you diagnosed your own cervical cancer as a young Black woman. So
yeah, that was a trip. When we started the clinics, we operated by volunteers. Nobody got paid. Here in Los Angeles, we had a real good champion who was a nurse and taught nursing out at UCLA, Marie Branch. And she helped us to get doctors to donate their time, and nurses and lab techs and whatnot. And we had a lot of Vietnam corpsmen who would come home, and they were very skilled in doing some basic medical work. And I tell people, that everything about medicine is not rocket science. There are things that we're learning more now, especially as they're working more with the promotoras, the community health workers, and the navigators. There are a lot of things that you can learn. We learned how to draw blood, how to give injections. We learned how to work in the laboratory. And up in Berkeley, it was the age of the anti-Vietnam War, so it was like make love and not war. So we had a lot of STIs that we treated up there. But we learned how to do the test. And once they were done, we could take the test into the lab. And because I had some experience being in the lab, it was easy for me to learn that, and how to stain the culture and look under to see if you see the little gonococcal cells or anything there. You take the blood, send it to the lab, outside lab, to check for syphilis, but we could check for chlamydia and yeast. We know how to do all of that. And then we get on the phone, because the doctors weren't there all the time. Our clinics were mainly in the evening and on the weekends. So if somebody came in the daytime, we could go ahead and do the test. And then we would call the doctor and tell them what we found. And he would say, okay, and he'd already trained us. We know what to look for. So we weren't exactly practicing medicine without a license. But he would tell us, okay, well, I'm going to prescribe such and such, put a note, leave the file out. So when I come in tonight, I could review it and sign it. He would tell us what to get. We would go into the lab, go into the pharmacy, because we had on-site pharmacies. The pharmaceutical reps would go out and see the doctors, and they would bring them all of these samples. Yeah. And so that made up our pharmacy. And so we could go and count out the pills and whatnot and tell people how to take them and give them to them. And I started going to medical school there. But one of the other things we learned how to do was to do physical exams, and we did pap smears on each other. We practiced how to give shots and all that stuff. And we would send it to the lab. And so mine came back positive class 2 squamous cells. I said, this couldn't be right. So we did it again. I sent it back. And it came back the same way. And so I went to my doctor, and he did the test again. And sure enough, that's what it was. So I ended up having to have part of my cervix removed. And that's when I dropped out of UC Berkeley. I was trying to be pre-med, and that didn't work. But that's how I found out. It probably would have been another year, because back in those days, you only went to the doctor maybe once a year to get your physical so you can get your birth control pills. Mm-hmm. So it would have been a long time before they even discovered that it was there. So for the grace of God, I could not be here. Okay. But yeah, we learned a lot of skills that then have carried over. Most of us have carried over to what we're doing today.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, so because the party was so resourceful and so young and so educated and energized, and you were pouring into your own communities, teaching children that they were worth something, you were COINTELPRO's the most severe internal threat to Homeland Security, I believe. And so I just wanted to, yeah. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to know how you all remained motivated and hopeful in the face of state violence and repression during your time in the party and after.
I don't know. For me, most of the male members of the Black Panther Party, or even party members, you didn't expect to survive, COINTELPRO, government repression, and what have you. So some of us made out our last wills and testaments and stuff going in. But you had that love for your people. You had that determination, and that what you were doing was right and needed. And let me point this out. We made a lot of mistakes, and we were really lucky.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of luck. Because the average party member was like 17 to 23 years old. I was an old member. But, I admired that about them, the party. Those who hadn't been in the military or who were so young. The same thing with SNCC, Everybody was young and dedicated and determined, and willing to sacrifice their lives if needed. We did that in the Black Panther Party. We were willing to die for what we believed in and to die for the people. So, it wouldn't be a voluntary death. we wanted to take some of them with us, but we were willing to die, And so, and that, once you overcome yourself, your egos, and you develop an empathy for your people. Empathy meaning that you can feel their pain, you can stand in their shoes and feel what they feel. And it's something greater than yourself. See? This is what we felt, for the most part. And we were willing to give up our lives if we needed to. But And like I say, we were just lucky a lot of times because there was no blueprint for what we were doing. We were doing that, right up the top of our heads. And these programs and stuff that we created, the survival programs, that was some amazing work, and it was all about organizing our people. We weren't a social service organization. These were models for our communities. We were showing them what they could do to take care of themselves. And with nothing, we weren't government funded, that's for sure. We sold those papers, and that was our primary source of support. Our new Black Panther papers, and yeah, it was some good work, beautiful work, and I was glad I was part of that. And there were some mistakes made. We did, and there were some internal problems we had to overcome, and some of them we didn't overcome, and that's why there was no party. There's no longer a party. But there are people with that spirit still out there working that adhere to the 10-point platform program.
Yeah.
That believed in what the Black Panther Party stood for, the international reach of the party, all of that. It was worth it, we created that, and it was worth it. I'd do it again if I had to. Yeah. Try not to make as many mistakes, but yeah.
Yeah. Ruth?
I'm not going to say very much about this, but yeah, when you're dedicated to the greater good, that motivates you. But I'll tell you one thing that really helped me keep fighting was that my comrades, those teachers, those community workers, the people that were working 24 hours a day, and you see them and you see them tirelessly giving everything they have, sacrificing themselves, sometimes even making their children go, without. But when you see that and you have solid friendships, you don't want to let each other down, and they give you the support to keep kind of going too. So I think that to me made a big difference. Keeping.
I don't have much to add to that. It's just like, I retired twice and I'm still working. And my kids say, why can't you just, I said, how do you retire from a passion? You have a passion to have people in your community and worldwide to have a better life than they do. How do you get my life is going great, but how can that be if my neighbor is not having a good life as well? So just having that deep down desire, and a lot of us come out of spiritual backgrounds. I mean, I was a holy roller, coming to the party. We didn't do that in the party, but a number of us after that went back to some of our roots and some of the things that we were doing. And so the first survival programs were in the Black church. We used to take care of people, long before the party. So we kind of had those kind of ideas and instincts. So when we started doing it in the party, it felt at home. And so we continue to do that, just to help people have a better life.
Thank you all so much. Lastly, could you talk about what you think are some of the greatest legacies and impacts of the party, and also what lessons you have for future generations, and us right now in our time as we're continuing to fight under a lot of the same conditions that the party came out of? Thank you.
You know, when the San Francisco case, San Francisco 8 case jumped off, and they tried to, under the Department of Homeland Security and USA Patriot Act, they tried to go back, and they were getting ready to move on those oil fields in the Middle East. And they did not want a repeat of what happened back in the 60s with Vietnam and stuff like that, with the demonstrations and everything, and the people in the streets. So they tried to preemptively stop that. And they went around and they started interviewing and looking for and finding old activists and what have you, under the guise of prosecuting unsolved crimes, you know. But we knew what it was, you know, and I, when the Twin Towers went down in New York, I knew that it was on. And I started looking out my office window every day. I was working from home. Every day I'd look out, and next thing I know, the SUV pulls up, and it's one of the original detectives on the, you know, it was investigating the Black Panther Party back in the 70s. He gets out, and his jacket, he's got this Steve McQueen jacket on, and it flaps open. He's got a shoulder holster, and there's a gun. I saw all of that. And on the other side is the FBI agent. They come to my door, and they want to interview me about people I knew back in the day. And I don't recommend this to anybody that's never had to go through this. You don't talk to the FBI or anybody, the police, without a lawyer. I was curious. I'm a curious soul. I wanted to know what this was about. I already knew what it was about. Like I say, when the Twin Towers went down, I got that instinct, you see. And I kept feeling that something was going to jump off. And they came in, and I opened the door, thinking I'm, going to try to figure out how they're coming at us. And they sat down in my family room. They looked out on the yard, and they said, "You have a beautiful home here." I didn't have a home. That was my wife's home. Nothing was in my name. I had gotten rid of all my property by then. And he says, "I hate to see you lose all this. If you could help us out, we can make all this go away." You know, he was promising me life in Pelican Bay if I didn't cooperate with him. And so he asked me about people I knew about. First he says, "Did you know any white people?" And I says, "Yeah, I know some white people." I've been in this country for a while, and I know a few white people. So he says, "Do you know anybody from the Weather Underground, the SDS?" I says, "No." I didn't respond to that. He asked me that. Then he asked me, did I know any members of the Black Panther Party? from San Francisco. And I said, if you have any further questions for me, I need to have an attorney present. And we had already been in meetings. We had all come together in Oklahoma and discussed this. We had an attorney and who had lined up other attorneys. That's how serious this was. We knew this was coming. And I told him, you'll have to bring a document next time if you want to, tell them they could leave, and you can have a document, bring a document next time. And they came back in 2005. That was 2003. 2005, they came back with a subpoena to appear before a secret grand jury. And they had me as a I was being charged with retroactively with being a domestic terrorist. And it was a federal charge. And so I had to go to San Francisco to appear before a magistrate. They were busing us back and forth because they thought we were going to cooperate with them. That was me and another party member that lived nearby. They were busing, they was treating us, they put us in the hotel room and they fed us and they thought we were going to cooperate.
Yeah, I think we got it covered.
And that lasted until we appeared before the illegal and unconstitutional grand jury. And this was all based on not a indictment. There was no indictment. This was based on a complaint by a police sergeant or lieutenant or something. And that was a criminal complaint. And so when we refused to cooperate with the grand jury, and all of us by then had been rounded up from all over the country, and we refused to, well, not all of us, but 6 of us rounded up from different parts of the country. And we all refused to cooperate, and then they turned on us just like that. We weren't their friends anymore. And we were suspects, not suspects, but personals of interest. So,
I think we gotta move on.
yeah. So, my advice to any of you is if you get involved in this, the struggle, and take up the cause of the people, you know the consequence. You could become a political prisoner, or you could be dead. So you should understand that before you go in. If you dedicate your life to something like that, understand that, and don't underestimate the power of the state. They engaged every agency of the government against us, but we hung tight. We didn't turn on each other, and eventually they had to close up camp and go home. But that was after about 8 years. And they messed around our lives for 8 years.
Yeah.
Some people lost homes, some people, suffered mentally and physically. Some people, well, anyway, I won't keep you any longer.
I think the question was about the legacy that the party leaves. Huey Newton called the Black Panther Party for self-defense the vanguard of the people. Okay, to this day, when I see people that are sympathetic to the struggle or committed to the struggle, I see a high regard and respect for the party, even to this day. It's been many, many years, but even to this day, I think people recognize the commitment that the party had and the passion, and that was something that I haven't seen since. And I hope that young people like you will address that, because today you have struggles that are just popping up all over the place. The issue of immigration, and people, like I heard before, are leaving their homes or not leaving their homes because they're afraid of what may happen. We weren't dealing with that so much, but some of these things are immediate and they need to be addressed, and they need, I made a resolution that if I hear people saying the wrong thing, that I'm going to really make an effort to say something, to at least say something, just to make a difference, just to make people think. Because, as a teacher too, I can't, when they started separating children from their parents, I just, I couldn't deal with that. And I hope you can't deal with that either. So in some way, do something. And that's the legacy. I think the party was the vanguard. And I think the survival programs did give the community a blueprint for what they can do if they organize. And, I think that's a big contribution that the party made. So that's all.
I think that in regards to the legacies left by the party, we were, those of you that know about health or the social determinants of health, you probably heard that, structural drivers and that kind of stuff. We were addressing those before those terms were even coined. And those were our survival programs. And we were able to leave a blueprint. The free clinic movement happened during that time. We had a call for many of our cities, chapters had free clinics. And after that, we were able to get the federally qualified health centers.
Right.
I helped to start one of those.
Program.
I helped to start one of those in South LA. It is now a FQHC. We had the free breakfast programs that now you can get breakfast and lunch at school.
Right.
Hopefully it's not just ketchup. Who was that said that ketchup was food? The sickle cell anemia program, we were in the vanguard spreading awareness about that. Nobody knew Black people were dying from sickle cell except the Black people who were dying in their families, because there was nothing about it. Mm-hmm. The Women, Infants, and Children's program, I helped to start one of the first ones up in the Bay Area in '74 when the funds were just allocated by the federal government. We had free clothing programs, free shoe programs.
Groceries.
The safe Seniors Against a Fearful Environment, where we would pick up the seniors when they got their checks, take them to the bank so they could cash them, to the grocery store, to the doctor, wherever, and get them back home safely, because they were afraid to come out. They were getting robbed because there was no electronic deposit in those days. People know you had a paper check, watch you go to the bank and cash it, and wait till you come out and then take your money. We even had safety issues, so we had signal lights installed. Mm-hmm. And then our advocacy just to eliminate police brutality and unjust actions and laws. I think these are a lot of the things that the party left an imprint on in this society and worldwide, actually. And my advice is just for you to be wise in what you're doing. When I saw people going out, laying down in the street, stopping traffic and whatnot, I'm thinking, boy, I hope your mama got a house that she can put up for you and $10,000 to pay that part of the bail. Think about those things because what you're doing doesn't just impact you. That doesn't mean because your parents don't like it. Most of our parents weren't thrilled about what we were doing either. But I mean, be cautious of that. Just like Hank was saying, to know what the possibility could be, and not trying to scare you, but just want you to be wise. And our hearts go out to you. And God, thank you so much for coming and listening to us old folks rant.
I'd just like to say one last thing here, that if it wasn't for the women of the Black Panther Party, the Black Panther Party would have ended with the invasion of the assembly up at Sacramento. That would have been it, you know. They stepped up and kept the party going and actually were the backbone of the party.
Thank you.
And let me just add here, this is a real OG. And Hank, you're 90? About to be 91. And he was talking about stuff back in 1955. And all the marbles still rolling around in the right direction. He's doing all right. So we just want to give you special kudos. 1955, I mean, I was barely in elementary school and you were dealing with stuff. So thank you all. Thank you.
Hi folks, we want to get you all eating soon since everything was delayed, but maybe just a few questions, take 5 minutes for questions. Yeah.
First of all, I want to thank you guys again for being here and sharing your insight and your story and just hearing everything you've done and what you contributed in your experience in the party has been really inspiring. I guess I wanted to ask, I'm a student organizer here on campus, and a lot of what we're dealing with right now, I guess, or a lot of, I think, the things that we're trying to spread awareness on are a lot of the different things that inform our organizing what we do on campus, is thinking about a lot of what you said about intercommunalism, right, newness theory, and thinking about how, right, like, I think a lot of what he said really resonates today of how like it's not nation versus nation, but communities versus empire, right? And that's something that we're thinking a lot about. And even the way we analyze like how ICE is attacking our communities, right? We recognize it as like empire versus multitude of communities who are more or less facing the same sort of struggle. So I guess my question to you, all three of you, is I know you guys talked about how maybe some of the more internationalist things maybe didn't come till later, till maybe you were out, like not as much doing the work of the organizing the party. But if there were any at all ways that that kind of perspective manifested itself in the daily or the regular movings and the workings of the party, what did that look like? How did that inform your work? I don't know if that kind of question makes sense, but I'm thinking about those things. And I'd love to hear from you here. Thank you.
I can speak to that quickly. We work with everybody. We work with Cesar Dolores and the farm workers. When they came and they were marching throughout California, they came through Oakland, we were able to help feed them and make sure they had water and stuff so that they could keep moving on. And other leaders in the community from the Latino population were very close with the Filipino movement here in Los Angeles. So it was going on during that time too. I mean, and the whole thing about the intercommunalism, it was enter our communities as well, you know, so we're stronger together. We have more similarities than we have differences, especially if you vote. So that undercuts a whole lot of things. And I think these folks that voted for that y'all's president, they're FAFO, they're fighting out.
Yeah.
Hi. My voice sounds weird.
I just want to say that I'm grateful that I'm here and that you guys are here. And just learning more about the Black Panther Party and realizing that I have a really important legacy of people that are amazing, that are strong, that have fought hard for the people that they love. And honestly, I have like one question. If you could do it all over again, would you think it would be better, or would you do something different?
I'd do it all over again, but if I had the benefit of, past experiences, yeah, I would do it different. There was a lot of, like I said, a lot of mistakes made, I felt, and we could have done better. But we did the best with what we had at the time, And that's the same thing that we saying of you one day. You did the best with what you had and what was given to you, the hand you were dealt. And we just want a better world. I wanted a better world for my kids, than the one I grew up in. And all kids, I wanted for all kids. But yeah, I try to like to make the same dumb mistakes we make.
Yeah. And it's one thing that Elaine Brown, sorry, you listen to Elaine Brown was here in Party when Huey was gone. She was talking to young people and other people all together. She would just say, we had problems, we had difficulties, but we strove to overcome what was going on within the party itself. Then she would say, these brothers and sisters, they didn't come from Panther Heaven. They came from the streets of LA. They came from being prostitutes. They came from being gangbangers. They came from reentry folks just coming out of jail. People that use drugs and drank too much alcohol. These are the people that came into the party and got a new vision, got a new reason for living, and just pressed on from that. So we just regular folks like y'all, what you can do is what you can do. You just stick with it and be wise.
Divinely inspired.
Final question? Auntie, then? Thank you so much.
We'll be able to eat soon. We can have our guests go up first and eat, everybody come out.